Imagine that you're riding in a car with your friend, and you put on a song. Your friend starts dancing a little and suddenly asks,
What he saying?
He's saying, "Where's my dad?"
Where's my dad?
Yeah.
Man.
At first glance, it just sounds like a fun, upbeat track, but behind it hides a real story of pain. It's the story of Stromae, a boy who grew up without a father, who was killed during the genocide in Rwanda. This song became a global hit, but even before that, Stromae had already made noise with another track, Alors, danse. What seems like a simple dance track on the surface has a hidden, darker meaning underneath. It's all about depression, loneliness, and trying to escape reality. In this video, we're going to dive into what makes Stromae a true genius, and most importantly, why he keeps disappearing from public eye. First, let's ask the obvious question. Who exactly is Stromae? The real name of our hero is Paul Van Haver. Some call him an electronic artist, some a rapper, and some a singing blogger. The truth is, all three descriptions fit. In short, a maestro. He may not have known where his path would lead, but he definitely picked the right stage name. Stromae, a clever anagram of the word maestro. The idea of presenting his music in this unique style didn't appear immediately. Before his major hits, Stromae was rapping as part of a duo called Suspicion. And yes, as you can hear, it's all in French. Stromae could have gone the easy route and switched to English like many artists do, but that's not his way. He believed that singing in English would feel fake because it wasn't his native language. Besides, he was sure music can deliver emotions without any language barrier. After Suspicion broke up, Paul kept working on music. In 2006, he released his first mini-album, which led to invitations to local concerts. At the same time, he wasn't just rapping, he was studying at the National Institute of Cinematography and Radio Electronics, majoring in sound engineering. After graduation, he landed a job at NRJ Radio, quickly winning listeners over with his charisma and unique style. YouTube wasn't even that big yet, but Stromae was already showing people how to make hits. He started uploading videos and giving live beat-making lessons. One of those live sessions gave birth to a beat you definitely know. When he finished that track, he began asking the radio to give it a spin. They played it once, and that was all it took. Listeners loved it, and soon the song was spinning all over France, then Europe, and eventually the whole world. Even Kanye West made a remix of the song, which without a doubt helped Stromae gain massive exposure in the US. A year later, Stromae released his debut album, Cheese. It's fair to say it wasn't a massive success across the board. Apart from Alors, danse, there weren't really any other tracks that had hit potential. Because of that, some critics labeled him a one-hit wonder. All of this was fueled by news reports showing Stromae wandering the streets looking drunk. Fans started speculating that he had fallen into depression and that he was really just another one-hit wonder. But it turned out all of that was a setup for a music video for his song Formidable. In the lyrics, Stromae speaks directly to passersby, expressing his pain, loneliness, and frustration with love. The title Formidable, which can mean both great and terrible in French, is used ironically, highlighting the contrast between appearance and reality. The video itself shows just how easy it is in our world to judge someone based on how they look, without ever understanding what they're really going through. Formidable became one of the defining works of 2013, but the most important and personal song of his career would soon follow, Papaoutai. Once again, at first listen, the song sounds lively and energetic, but once you dive into the lyrics, you realize it's a heartbreaking cry of a child who grew up without a father. Stromae's father, Pierre Routard, had come to Brussels to study, and that's where he met Stromae's mother. In 1994, Pierre was killed during the Rwandan genocide when Paul was just 9 years old. The title Papaoutai translates literally to "Dad, where are you?" And behind those words lies all the pain Stromae lived with since childhood. Pierre Routard was one of the million victims of the Tutsi genocide, one of the most horrifying tragedies of the 20th century. In just a few months, nearly 1 million people were brutally murdered. But Stromae's personal tragedy runs even deeper. First, Pierre had essentially left their lives long before his death. After his studies, he returned to Rwanda and only rarely visited his children. And second, after Pierre's death, there wasn't even a body to mourn. For a long time, no one knew exactly what had happened, and their mother kept the terrible truth from the children. It was only when Paul was 12 that he finally learned his father had died. Just a few brief meetings in a lifetime, and then a figure forever lost. This deep personal wound left a permanent scar on his soul, and it was precisely during this fatherless childhood that music became a way for Paul to process his pain, search for answers, and survive the emptiness. In the second verse, Stromae stops speaking only like a hurt child. He admits that being a father is hard and that he himself may one day face the same difficulties. Thus, the song Papaoutai becomes not only a cry of pain, but also a deep reflection on growing up and acceptance. Another standout hit from the same album is Tous les mêmes. In this music video, Stromae transforms into both a man and a woman, portraying the eternal conflict between the sexes. The song is filled with bitter irony. Men accuse women of being hysterical and dramatic, while women accuse men of being selfish and indifferent. Visually, the video splits into two worlds: pink lightning for the female perspective and green for the male. By the end, behind all the stereotypical masks, there's just a single lonely human being, exhausted by endless misunderstanding. This album took Stromae to a truly global level. He went to the US to perform concerts. Before his first American tour, Paul collaborated with big music outlets like Pitchfork and released videos on their YouTube channels to introduce his music to a US audience. At first, you would see full arenas in Europe, and then Stromae, sleeping in cheap roadside motels, playing his songs on the street for random people passing by. It was a brilliant, humble way to stir up excitement for his shows. At that time, he had already booked a show at Madison Square Garden, a legendary venue that, until then, had been filled only by two francophone performers, Celine Dion and Charles Aznavour. And yet, some American journalists still didn't think he was big enough for the US market. They asked him awkward questions like this.
Why do you think you haven't caught on yet in the US the same way that you've caught on in the rest of the world?
English-speaking audience is maybe less used to listen to non-English music.
And here he was, a relatively new artist with just 2 albums under his belt, charming the American public not with hype, but with pure sincerity and vulnerability. That's the word that comes to mind when you watch Stromae perform. Vulnerability. At first, it seemed like everything was going perfectly. Stromae's career was growing, and his American tour was in full swing. But then, during one of the concerts on his African tour in June 2015, something unexpected happened. Right there on stage, in front of thousands of fans, Stromae suddenly seemed to fall into a black hole. That's how he later described the terrifying experience. No one in the crowd realized that behind his smile and energetic dancing, Stromae was actually battling overwhelming panic. Sleepless nights, vivid nightmares, dizziness, sudden bursts of irrational fear, this had all become his daily reality. Doctors eventually discovered the cause: an anti-malarial drug called Lariam, mefloquine that Stromae had been taking as a precaution before his trip to Africa. Unfortunately, this medication has very serious side effects. it can trigger severe anxiety, hallucinations, and deep depression. Stromae's inner world became pure chaos. He felt like he was losing control over himself. That endless fear was swallowing up his last reserves of strength. After that night, Stromae's health collapsed almost overnight. His management announced the cancellation of the rest of his African tour, and soon after, his scheduled American shows were also postponed. Everything through the beginning of August was canceled. But even in the middle of this personal crisis, a small spark of hope appeared. In December 2015, quietly and away from the media, Stromae married his longtime girlfriend, stylist Coralie Barbier. In a small, intimate ceremony lit by candles, he said his vows, looking into the eyes of the woman he loved. That day brought back a genuine smile to his face, maybe for the first time in a long while. Having someone close by gave him hope that the darkness would eventually lift and that his shattered soul would begin to heal. After surviving the storm of 2015, Stromae made a tough but necessary decision: to disappear from public life for several years to focus on his own recovery. It was as if he dropped the curtain at the height of the show, leaving fans confused and worried. He avoided the spotlight completely, retreating into a long period of rehabilitation and self-reflection. During this pause, Stromae slowly began piecing himself back together. He created music quietly in his studio, explored fashion design, directed music videos, all away from the constant attention of the press. In 2018, during a Muzert fashion show, Stromae presented a 9-minute-long track called Défilé, an experimental, dark, introspective piece.
Sans écouteurs, on la croirait folle. Sans Google, on la...
It wasn't a triumphant comeback, more like a single artistic gesture. The final note faded, and Stromae quietly returned into the shadows once again. Avoiding the bright lights of fame, he found himself behind the scenes, focusing on producing music for other artists. His elusive presence could be felt in the haunting notes of Coldplay's Arabesque, and there were even rumors of a possible collaboration with Billie Eilish. In the silence backstage, new sounds were quietly being born, while Stromae stayed hidden from the spotlight, still processing, still creating. Stromae's real comeback happened in 2021. He released the new single, Santé.
Célébrons ceux qui ne célèbrent pas. Encore une fois, j'aimerais le...
And in 2022, Stromae dropped his first album in 9 years, Multitude. Just like before, the main characters of Stromae's music were simple, ordinary people. The unhappy, the broken, the hardworking, the lost. It didn't matter what their story was. The important thing was that Paul was once again ready to be their voice, and this time he hit even harder emotionally. Santé itself is another little masterpiece. In the music video, we see 40 everyday workers, people who normally remain invisible, performing a dance choreographed to celebrate their overlooked lives. Simple waiters, janitors, nurses, all sharing a moment of dignity and joy. And the best part? These people nailed it so authentically that you don't even question their sincerity for a second. It really feels like a breath of fresh air for everyone stuck in the grind. Those doing the same repetitive jobs day after day, yet still refusing to give up hope. A few minutes ago, I said that Stromae loves to sing about unhappy people. You could already feel it back in Alors, danse, which some even called the anthem of suicidal dancing. But in Multitude, for the first time, the person he sings about, the truly miserable one, is himself. This is especially clear in the song L'enfer.
J'ai parfois eu des pensées suicides, j'en suis peu fier, on croit parfois.
In L'enfer, Stromae describes the terrifying state of realizing that your pain is not unique, that millions of people are suffering in the same way. But even that realization brings no comfort. The loneliness still stays with you, like a shadow that refuses to leave, even when you're surrounded by a crowd. What's interesting is how he presented this song. It wasn't through a regular release or a social media drop. It happened live, right in the middle of a major television interview. During what looked like a typical sit-down talk show, suddenly the music started playing, and Stromae simply began singing, directly from his heart.
Ça fait déjà ça de moins dans la tête. Et si je comptais, combien on est?
It was raw, it was vulnerable, and it was powerful poetry, showing just how much courage it takes to talk about such deep wounds in front of a live audience.
Ces pensées qui me font vivre à l'enfer.
At the beginning of 2023, it seemed like Stromae was entering a new golden era. Multitude earned him major awards in France, and he set out on a massive world tour to promote the album. But very quickly, celebration turned to concern. His health took a sudden downturn again. By the spring of the same year, Stromae announced he was canceling the rest of his Multitude tour due to medical reasons. He posted an open letter to his fans writing, "A few months ago, I felt my health took a bad turn, which led me to cancel a few shows in France and then in Europe. Surrounded by my doctors, my family, my friends, and my team, I was hoping I would be able to get better quickly in order to resume touring and to meet you again as soon as possible." After more than a year of total silence, in 2024, Stromae finally started giving us the first small signs that he was still with us. In September, he broke his silence and posted on Instagram, telling fans that he had prepared a special gift for them, a concert film featuring live performances from the Multitude tour. And then in November, Stromae officially ended his creative silence and released a brand new single, My Meilleur Ennemi, a careful, haunting duet with French singer Stromae, recorded for the soundtrack of Netflix animated series Arcane.
C'est la meilleure chose qui m'est arrivée, mais aussi la pire chose qui m'est arrivée. Ce jour où
His story proves that even after the darkest times, a true artist can still find a way back to the light. And after all, as Stromae himself once said, even in the darkest times, in the most desperate moments, and in the harshest circumstances, we still need to keep dancing.
Alors, danse. Alors, danse.
The next video I recommend you check out is about a music festival that ended in total disaster. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and I'll see you very soon.